just like that, we are back. Welcome to STHE Internet right here on PlatformCollection YouTube. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome and thank you. We are underground and indie hip hop show, at least from the underground and indie hip hop perspective. I guess we kind of investigate the world and all things that are interesting to us through the perspective of lifelong underground and indie hip hop fans, participants. That's who we are. I go by KILLcRey. You can call me Chris. I'm a member of the Invisible Ponchos, which is a hip hop group, which is kind of a new hip hop group. I've actually been a rapper, MC, hip hop artist for my entire life since I was a little kid. Since I can remember listening to music, I already wanted to do it, and recently I started my band, as I like to call it, the Invisible Ponchos, with my partner Gene Flo, and a rotating cast of co-members. So check out the Invisible Ponchos. Check out my music, KILLcRey, all streaming platforms. But yeah, run up that Invisible Ponchos, though. We just dropped a new video called Introduction, and it's our first official release as the Invisible Ponchos, this experimental project that myself and Gene Flo are taking on. But anyways, underground indie hip hop, that's what we're talking about. And today we have a great conversation. This conversation, it's a long one. This is a long episode. I think we're going to clock in close to over 2.5 hours, something like that. And it's just because there was, and I cut a bunch of stuff, but there was just so much good content. My friend Curtis King is the person that we're speaking to, and him and I have always had amazing conversations, and we've had a lot of recorded amazing conversations that you can catch on previous podcasts that I've done, the Crappy Awesome podcast being one of them. We've primarily spoken on there, but he's been on STHE Internet a few times now as well. Joined in the fun, and now he is at a point where he is sort of reintroducing himself back into the music scene as a music maker, as a MC, rapper, vocalist, to be exact. He hasn't done it in a minute because he decided he didn't want to do that anymore. And we talk about that a little bit. We talk about him coming back and what got him there. And if you know anything about Curtis King, he's a successful entrepreneur as well, an author, podcast host. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's an accomplished producer. And he's my friend. And I think this was one of the more fluid and honest conversations we've ever had, as our friendship has grown as well. These conversations have gotten deeper and better because I think we have a better understanding of each other. And yeah, we had an amazing conversation, and it's a long one, so buckle in. This is a good one for a drive. If you're about to take a drive, this is a good one for that. So without further ado, I don't want to do too much of an intro or too much of an outro for this show because it's all about the interview. And by the way, Kurt has a brand new record out right now, DIY 2, because there was a 1, now there's 2. Go get that. It's amazing. The work that he's done on that project is amazing. And he should be very proud. I'm very proud to play any role in letting people know about this man and his talents. And yeah, anyways, here's a really amazing conversation with myself, Curtis King, OG Hip Hop Eddie. And we'll see you after. Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis King.
What's going on?
Welcome,
Man, you're here.
man. Yeah, you made
I feel
it.
like now we can talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Man, we're celebrating. I mean, we're celebrating a lot of things
like in the thick of it right now.
I've been following the journey. I started following when you first went live and you were like, I'm going to record an album. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of like walk us through that part? For people who don't know, Curtis King decided to record his entire album, I guess, in front of public view.
Yeah.
Right? It was almost like a museum of creation. Is the way I kind of looked at it.
Yeah.
But what makes you want to do something like that? Because if people have been following us and they've followed PlatformCollection throughout the years, I'm sure they're familiar with you.
Right.
But you had kind of stepped away from making at least album work. At least that's what it felt like. Mm-hmm. You know, I know you always kept like at least a hand, and occasionally you would drop a song. But doing an album seemed like you were past it for whatever reason, or you had decided I'm done with pursuing that, doing that part of your journey,
right?
And then you decide to record an album and do it in front of everybody.
Yeah,
what got you to that
pressure,
point?
Isn't it? Yeah. I think I was done with the album process because in my mind, that meant that I was still kind of knee deep in an industry that I didn't really want to be associated with.
Yeah.
Even if it was independent, like I was just thinking about music industry in general and thinking about the way streams get treated on the financial end, the way that independents are looked at when they try new things by the folks who are in the quote unquote traditional industry, seeing all of these rappers pass away and be murdered, and just seeing that and kind of seeing the lay of the land. I just kind of looked at where my life is now, and I was just like, how necessary is that to where I'm at? And album just didn't make any sense. And then also too, just thinking about how I go crazy when it's album time. Like I don't know how to just drop an album and then like soft launch it.
Yeah.
And I thought
because you've never done that.
I'm chaotic, bro. Like I'm obsessive, I should say, when it comes to that. So
wait, but do you enjoy that part? Is that out of enjoyment, or is that out of more of a anxiety of this? I want this to perform the way I'm envisioning it.
Well, it's I guess it's kind of the same thing I started my career to begin with. Is that if I know I can do better and I don't do better, it's hard for me to live with those results.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard for me to sleep with those results. Mm-hmm. If I know that I left something on the field, it's the same thing when I was playing Little League.
Are you always right? Are you always right that when you have the anxiety of I should be doing more, are you right?
I mean, I try to set goals that there's a strong enough why that'll push me to accomplish it, if that makes sense, right? And I know it's kind of backwards, but I try to find like I wasn't gonna go for the number one spot for the first 2 EPs when I kind of went on this campaign, this massive campaign for these projects where I'm giving a reward in exchange for a pre-order. I wasn't gonna take these on unless I first had saw an example of somebody. And shout out to Ruslan, is somebody that I saw do it. He's the one that kind of like showed me that pre-orders is the way to go about it.
Right, and you're talking about pre-orders largely on iTunes.
Specifically on iTunes, only exclusively, I should say.
In order to try to debut at a number one spot.
So then they basically, it's kind of like rollover minutes. They kind of stack those pre-orders on top of your first day pre-orders. And, you know, I already do pretty well because I don't release albums all the time by just a general audience who just enjoy the music. But I understand that we're shifting in a time where so many things that we've kind of held as sacred are changing. The idea of the major feature is no longer just the guy that, you know, has the biggest name in hip hop. It may be the guy that has 500,000 plus subscribers on YouTube.
Right.
Because it's an active audience. It's not a legacy audience. You know, you get some artists who have kind of like a legacy audience where, you know,
they're always
they're grandfathered in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But you got these folks who they drop a 2-minute video and it's 200,000 views within the first, you know, day or so. Those are the new features, the new major features, and they have the skill to back it. And so, for instance,
it largely describes the new celebrity.
The new celebrity, exactly. And so, in being in tune with that and seeing this, I don't think I have this perspective on it. Just to kind of double back to your original question about jumping into an album, I don't think I see this unless I take my hiatus, my yearly hiatus in December. If I don't take that, I don't get to see the lay of the land so clearly. If I'm in it all the time, then I feel like I'm more reactive to this person did this. Okay, that's interesting. Let's study that. Instead of figuring out what is the void that Curtis King can fill and what is it going to actually take work-wise. The beginning of this year, everything kind of ushered me into this album because the YouTube was the first thing that I made a major change and that I said, okay, I'm going to stop playing about my organization. I'm going to stop playing about writing stuff down. Like I know what I should do, but I've also been getting away with a lot not doing the organization. Having sort of my mental, Rolodex and Post-it notes already ready. Yeah. That's not appropriate for the level of mastery, right? The level of cinematography that I want to take it to, the level of musicianship I want to take it to. I cannot do that coasting anymore. And so it got to the point where I almost felt like I had become so accustomed to being above average that was good enough to be above average of the things that I'm doing. And for me,
right, because you were already above average,
and it was like it wasn't. The people around me in terms of my circles weren't that impressed. I mean, they were impressed. They were impressed with what I said was not my best work.
The level you had already set that we had all become comfortable with.
And it was like, man,
that was not your peak.
I knew better. And I
was that a slow burn though? Like, was that something? Because I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you, and I know that you are very. You're very aware of self, and that's a constant thing for you, discovering that more and more. I would have to. I'm imagining that at some point on your hiatus, that those feelings and that conversation had to have come up in your head. Like, am I doing everything?
Oh no, it's been there for years.
Yeah,
it's been there for years. Even in the midst of accomplishing other things that people are applauding me for. There's a voice in my head that says, you're so lazy, right? Like, and not lazy in the sense of getting my hands dirty, not lazy in the sense of doing a quantity of work, but like actually
what you're capable of.
Like when I look.
Is that a real voice, Kurt?
That's like, a real voice, yes.
And is it right?
It is right in that there's always room for improvement.
Right.
It is right in that there's a necessity to focus. Follow one course until success, right? If I look at that as an acronym, it is right in that sense. It is a bit harsher than it probably needs to be at times.
Sure.
But I think that that's ultimately what pushes whatever your mantra, your mentality is that voice that says when you are almost at E on your gas tank, speaking in terms of your physical, in terms of your body and your mind, and it's that extra oomph, that second breath. Where does that come from? And I feel like a lot of the source of my second breath comes from that voice that's like, yeah, you're tired, but you're tired because you're doing a bunch of stuff that you didn't need to do. You're trying to be in your pursuit of being accepted, in your pursuit of being respected. You're becoming a jack of all trades.
Unnecessarily prolific.
Well, that's a good question. Damn, that's a good question.
Because I mean, I'm wondering, and I want your insight on this again because I know how much time you spend on this topic.
Yeah,
I've recently come to at least a conclusion on my part that deciding to chase mastery seems to be throughout my experience of life, right? Seems to have come down to a simple explanation. It is as complex and simultaneously simple, right? The dichotomy of it is, it's just like choosing to be a person who gets married or has kids.
Okay.
I believe that it comes down to that because I do know that everybody that's listening right now can probably self-evaluate and go, I can be better in this place.
Sure.
But the thing you're talking about, the thing that I'm talking about specifically, isn't necessarily a normal level of that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's also not.
That's true.
And we know this because it's not always the healthiest. In fact, it needs to be calibrated just right in order for it to be healthy. like a marriage,
Yeah.
like having kids.
Yeah.
And so the part that I've kind of come to with myself is because I've constantly have that voice as well, right? And I think I only had issue with that voice when I thought that voice might just be fucking with me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now what I've accepted is I am just that person. I've chosen to do this, and I accept that that's the way I'm wired.
Right, right.
But in comparison to, say, the average person, you know, with a 9-to-5 job that doesn't pursue the things that we're pursuing,
right.
I don't know if it's that necessary to have that.
It's
feeling.
not to that.
It almost seems counterintuitive to keep that going.
It's something I said in a post recently on IG. I was like, nobody like discipline is not the sexiest thing. People are not crowding around to see you know what I mean?
Right, quite the
you
opposite.
Sweating and doing your push-ups towards your weight loss.
Easy's
goal.
way sexier.
It is. But also so is watching it, right? Watching it and you're witnessing the end result. People come out in droves. They buy tickets. They you know what I mean? They buy VIP tickets to watch the people who are products of discipline.
Yeah.
Behavior. But the actual work that goes into it, I mean, they may want to watch it behind the scenes, but they're not obsessing over just the training aspect.
Nor should they.
Right. Because it's not their bag, right?
Right. And like I'm saying, it literally could be detrimental to whatever their North Star that they pick. Like if your North Star is, hey, I want to get 401k, I want to retire at this time. Okay. Searching for mastery is probably not the thing you should probably do in all because it's going to take you away from that a lot of the times. And there's a lot of you started off this conversation with saying that you have to take time off. Right? It's only because you're searching for mastery, though. Like normally people just settle into it.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've only recently come to these conclusions in searching it in myself.
Sure.
Because I like I said, I too have that voice that goes, are you being lazy right now? Is this lazy? Are you being lazy? Even if I'm sweating and I'm lifting 100 pounds, like even then I'm still doing that. And I've realized like, oh, okay, that's just you. That's you.
Yeah, but
you're wired a certain way, right?
And I think it's important to recognize like how rare that is and how abundant life is to be surrounded by people who are multiple people within your circle who are like, because that's not a
weird, by the way. Not even just it's weird. We've been doing this long enough to know that we're in a very blessed situation in that we can have these conversations.
Sure.
Right? Just with one other person.
Yeah.
And we have multiple people that we can have that. But it's why we've been able to farm a lot of that data to get these kind of answers, right? I don't know if earlier this year I definitely have stopped, or maybe not stopped. I've recalibrated the idea of giving people advice because I realized that most of that is being given to people who are not necessarily wired to see that through
and act on it. Yeah.
Right. Get up every day at 5:30. Sounds simple enough. You know, 30 days into that, it's a whole different part of your brain that you're using just to turn that. And you have to have trained that part of the brain through constant. And here's the thing that a lot of people don't like. This is the part they don't like about this. You've trained that through essentially failures of trying to train your brain like that for years.
Yeah.
That's what it literally takes. There isn't a way around that. And that's the part that I feel like in you and the music, you know, I've sat with the album a little bit, and I watched you record it early. When I was watching you record live in front of all those people, I'm having just literally anxiety attack watching you do it because I'm obviously picturing myself in that situation and going, fuck, that part of creating something is so... Because it's not always happy.
No.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it sucks a lot. Sometimes you're asking for the message and it's just not there that day. Right?
Yeah. But you know what the flip side of that, because someone else brought that up, you know, how are you able to... I think we only had... So just to make sure that there's context, I recorded every single song with the camera on in some capacity. So either it was 5 hours on 2 SD cards that I later edited into an episode for a series that I did called Road to DIY. Or it was a live stream that was 6 to 7 hours, and I would take that and chop it up and kind of go from there. But prior to that, even thinking about an album, I had done that for an entire year. So what I secretly challenged myself to do was, if you get to mastery or the highest level of quality through quantity, then how many live streams would it take? And if I can actually pull myself away from caring about how many live streams it takes and just create, I'm probably going to learn a few things after 90 something episodes and then averaging 6 to 7 hours each episode. So it's almost like, I don't know how many hours I put in, but those hours have got to be the reason why I'm either doubling back on the 10,000 hours, or basically, how can I put it? Deepening my understanding of my craft, because I've gone through this journey and it's like, there's nothing new. There's nothing new in this, in terms of the steps that it requires. The only thing new is if I play this key or if I take this sound that I never would have used, something different is going to happen. For instance, the outro. If I take this Afrobeat loop, this drum loop, how is that going to make me now rap? Well, that's the newness in it. But the consistency is that it starts the same way. I start with some chords, I put some drums down, I start mumbling, and the mumbling generally becomes either a chorus or some lyrics or a cadence, and then I get that and make it done. And so it's just like, but I had to find that through live stream. Now, the beautiful thing about being in front of people when you're doing this, and that's not a normal thing for me and for a lot of people, is that
Still not.
It's more normal than it's been ever before, because now I'm able to process. That's how I know that I've like trained myself to get into that flow state, because one of the levels of flow state is you get in a flow state when you start to atomize certain steps that used to be like, okay, like when you're learning to drive, it's like, okay, make sure the car is in reverse or in drive, and make sure, you got your blinker, look at your rear view. There's things that now I don't even think about because of those live streams. The first few live streams were like technical difficulty after another. And it was like, oh my gosh, how do people do this? And then somebody told me about an Elgato Stream Deck. And I'm like, oh, so I can just push a button. So then that becomes a part of the workflow. So I had to train myself through those 90 odd episodes. But being in front of people now creating doesn't give me enough time to sit in my head anymore.
Right.
When it was just me, you know what I mean? When it's just me creating, I can say all kind of things to convince myself why this is a bad session. When there's people there that are watching that are saying, man, I just got off of work and I've been looking forward to Flowcation all week.
Yeah.
Do you want to sell them short? So it's almost like having an accountability partner unofficially. And that's how I treated it. So then when they're coming in there and they're like, man, like I like what you're doing with those drums. Yeah. It takes me out of my head for a second where I'm thinking about these lyrics are so predictable and subpar. And they're telling me, yo, the production on this is amazing. You got to sit with this. And something about that like sparks one positive idea that sparks another that makes me kind of recharge. But that wouldn't have occurred had they not been in the studio through the form of the chat.
Let me ask you this though: is that the sickness though?
You know what I mean? When you say the sickness,
because I've realized, because dude, we are pursuing this very weird existence. Yeah. And the wave that we're riding, right, is unpredictable. It's an extra layer of everything on top of life. Yes. Right? It's an extra layer that you've chosen to put it there. Right. Right. And life's still going to happen to you. Yeah. Right? No matter how big, no matter care. Number ones,
life
right?
Does not care.
Right. And so the need to keep doing that, right? Because this is if we could count, right? The real number is probably still going, right? The version the version of Chris that this is. It just keeps going. In fact, there's this need for you to reinvent that all the time. And as I'm listening to you, right, I've heard the record. I want to see if we've known each other long enough, dude.
Yeah.
Right. We both know that there's a part of us that can't stop learning about all these things that we do, right? So you have to know that my observation of things is higher than most people. Like I pay attention to these things constantly.
You do this also.
You've been really, really good for a really long time.
Yeah. I accept that now.
Right. And so when I'm hearing you talk about like the different levels of this, at some point it has to just all be a choice to feel it all, right? To feel the stress. I just saw you guys just did that amazing live stream with you and Noah the other day, and it was super emotional.
Yeah.
Right? There was tears in it.
Yeah.
There was and you said something pretty poignant on there, I thought, that you like to feel it all. You want to feel it all. That's how you're wired.
Yeah.
You have to feel it all. And I remember a time when feeling it all was a bit much. You weren't really knowing how to deal with all those emotions all the time because they were harming you physically. Yeah. Like physically it was taking a toll.
Sure.
And for most people, one incident like that would be enough to go, I'm done.
I'm out of here.
Right. Yeah. And this, again, countless versions now that all go through that same cycle. We will be here again, guaranteed, in a year from now, talking about a new thing.
On some other thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by is that a sickness?
You know what? I've come to the conclusion that,
and maybe that's too much of a negative word, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. It definitely looks like
if you're in the program, you don't seem to be abiding by all the program rules. You consistently trying to go against the program.
Of course, and I've come to the conclusion that whatever you're passionate about, your passion is going to look like work to other people. Like I couldn't do all that, and it's like no, you would do all that if
you loved it like I
were driven. Not even just love like if you found a love that was so unconditional. That said, even though financially, like you got to think, I've been doing this for 20-something years or 20 years now. And somebody reminded me, they said, I think the reason why you're able to still evolve at this stage, the reason why you're still able to, not look, I guess, like a lot of your peers your age, is because you've always had this optimistic viewpoint. No matter how shitty things get, you say the best is yet to come.
That's true.
And even at my worst, it was like it's like a PG version of when somebody's like, "Oh, things are bad." It's like it's the things that I'm talking about are not. In my opinion, when I listen to other people complain about things, I'm like, yeah. To me, that represents more of the sickness than I think that I have. When I think about going to a job that you don't like, that you hate, and you don't have any focus. It's not like you have kids, but you're doing it because it's easier than pursuing the thing that's a question mark. And then you still go there, and your favorite thing to do is to go drink it and complain about that.
Yeah.
I don't like, if I'm on the opposite side, I'm not here to judge, but I'm saying if you're going to call anything a sickness, it's like
I get that.
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Isn't that literally, one of the definitions of insanity?
You would think,
right? But we do.
But then that would make us okay.
I mean,
and this is the part that I'm wrestling with, right?
I accept it.
And there's a part of me that the self-sabotage part of my brain goes, that can't be true, right? Because then that means that like you're one of the people who knows that other way is a sickness.
Well, I don't even want to. I'm just bringing it up as my thing right now.
No, but you're right though.
Well, I'm just saying my thing, and I'm not even like doubling or coming or what is it? I'm not falling back off of that statement. But what I'm saying is that at this stage, what's the most important thing for me in order to keep sort of a stoic point of view of all things? Somebody asked me, "How are you feeling today?" I said, "I feel like a room temperature rock, no matter what the weather is." And And that has not always been something for me. I kind of go with the, oh man, we're up right now. We get excited and then something happens and then I come all the way down and I'm like, oh man, what happened? Life happened.
Yeah.
And so now being at this place, I'm able to look at the duality in just life in general. And that has been the biggest, forget the music, forget when anybody hears and says, man, you sound like a different artist. I'm a growing human being and a better man now because I'm able to look at a situation, look at negative, what somebody would say is negative feedback and say, could that be true? And could I see a perspective in which this could be true? That's not something I could always do. Back in those days when we were talking in the bar at the Vibe, and I'm like, I was so insecure about my own point of view and things that didn't match up against that or match up with that, that I always looked at those who oppose that as like, well, there's something wrong with you or, you know, you're judging me. And now I'm at a place where I've been so far removed from these things that from around people, I just been me, my wife, and my son. We've been in the same environment, and I haven't had a chance to be exposed to like the ebbs and flows of like the negativity of other artists that sometimes I was around, and you know them kind of feeling like, oh man, the scene is this way, or music is this, and I don't know what it is except for at home. I feel like for 6 hours when I'm live streaming, I get to be a kid again. I get to jump into this, record, and not know what's going to happen next, and I have a room 60 something, 70 people. That ain't large in terms of comparison to like a lot of my, you know, the bigger peers on there. But for me, I can't fit 6 of those people in the room without it being congested. Yeah. It's more than, I have more than I need, more than abundance. But being able to look at the duality of the situation and say, well, if this is looked at as a sickness, well, then I think that we all should take an opportunity to look at, take a lens at what we're doing and see what part of it is a sickness. Because I think there's also a healthy space for independent living, to independent artists and rapper and producer living to exist. I just think that there's a lot of things in the environment that don't promote that. There's a lot of things in the environment that when you say something, you're going through something. When you say that, oh man, like when somebody, like especially like at a show, a hip hop show, you tell somebody like, man, how you been? Oh man, you know, the wife is this and da 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 da. There's a lot of folks who are like, yeah, I feel you, bro. Like, but if you tell them like, man, I've been amazing. You know, they might be like, that's cool, bro. I'm happy for you. But then they may ostracize themselves away from you because I was that person where it was like, this happy. He always happy. Like, it almost offends people.
Right. Well, because we act as mirrors for each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And nobody kind of wants to see themselves in the worst state in comparison.
I say that to say, and I'll leave it there, is that being able to see the duality in it and see that there is no absolute rights or wrongs in any situation. I'm able to stand back and just be like, all right, if I can observe a conversation inside my own head between one point of view and another point of view, that's what is that is observing that dialogue. If I'm able to look at that and see that duality within myself, there's no way that I can't talk to someone and just be in here and be like, I never thought of it like that. Don't know if I agree, but at least I'm open to the perspective.
And that has helped with what primarily? The
everything.
The feeling of judgment, the feeling of what?
First, the creative process, in that I'm no longer biased towards sounds.
Okay.
I used to have a bias of like, do I want to put this EDM tempo into this music? Do I want to add this type of snare? Like if I'm doing a hip hop record that's like introspective, do I want to put this trap snare in here, these trap hi-hats? Will it take away from the aesthetic that I'm trying to create? And having an openness in general has allowed the creative process to just be what it is. We manipulate a bunch of 1 second audio sounds. We yell out or write down a bunch of random scattered thoughts that eventually become concepts and become hooks. There's no rhyme or reason for this. Nobody can give you an explanation of where exactly it comes from. Some people think it's a spiritual experience. Some people think that it's, you know, just a combination of all the things that you've gone through. But if there's no explanation for it, it probably would be in our best interest just to allow it to happen and let it form into whatever it forms into. So having that more open point of view also allows me to take the ridicule, as you're saying, and also being a YouTuber in general does that, right?
I believe that probably helped a lot.
They're throwing their trauma at me, throwing all kind of opinions at me, their biases. And this was the first year, and I'm 8 months into it, that I haven't responded back to near one negative comment this entire year.
Wow.
I blocked. You know what? I even say
that is big for you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's big for me.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
to clap back, but and I don't say that like to like you know as a pat on the back, but it's like
no, because you. I mean, I remember you would. I would almost seek it out sometimes. I'd see you go live sometimes and just answer people.
Just go.
Yeah.
But now I finally got to a place where it's like, if I have time for that, what am I neglecting?
Right.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, I'm embarrassing this person because they tried to say something to me and I'm clapping back and I'm showing that I'm not a punk. I'm showing that I will speak up for myself. But also this exchange is one of 8 billion people that I could possibly have. I don't even need a percentage point of that 8 billion to do what I do and do what I love for the rest of my life and leave something to my son. So now I even say, I'm not blocking you. I'm fixing our algorithms.
Oh, okay.
I'm not blocking you. I'm just fixing the algorithm because obviously your exposure to me at this point in your life can have you only focusing on the things that don't add up. And this is not to say that I'm above being criticized. I get criticized all the time. And I actually now am in a place where I can say thank you because I'm able to see the love in it. Even if it doesn't come off in a loving way, I'm able to see it like, you know what? Thank you for telling me I had a booger on my nose. You know, you use some choice language that probably could have been avoided, but it's your way of expressing that. I'll accept it as such.
What about though, again, being the artist that you are, having gone through the journey, having bled for the art many times, what about when it's just like about what you're creating?
Talking about the judgment on what I'm
creating? Do you feel like, I'm saying, is there an expert on what, could there be more of an expert on what you're creating that's coming out of you?
I don't believe so.
There can't be, right?
I don't believe so. I feel like because of the streaming journey, I've been able to, and I could be wrong, of course I could be wrong, but I feel like I have a really high percentage of looking at the feedback and being able to see it and say, is this constructive or deconstructive? Because some people will give you a suggestion about something
irrelevant.
That's so irrelevant. Like for instance, I was editing one of the songs because we recorded, mixed, mastered, did the beats, did all the vocals, all in FL Studio. So of course that brings out a lot of producers, that brings out a lot of folks who do vocal engineering. And somebody was saying, first they came in there in the middle of my session and said, make an Afro beat. And I'm like, we're working on this right now. Yeah. So I don't know. It's like walking in a classroom and it's like, teach this. It's like, no, we're working on this right now. Right. You can come have a seat if you like, or if not, you can leave. And this person said that, and I said, that's not what we're going to do. We're working on this. And then they said, stop taking all the breaths in between your lyrics. It's taking out all the life out of your song.
Right.
Oh. And then I was like, these
are the things I'm talking about.
And this is the closest I came to like making a clapback. But it was like, I wanted them to understand. I didn't say anything negative. I said, now let me get this straight. I'm just going to repeat what you said to me. Because sometimes you don't have to even say anything. You just repeat what they say to you to make sure that you got it right. Let me get this straight. You think that 17-year-old Tyler, let's just give a random name. 17-year-old Tyler is sitting in the car with his mother, and his mother says, you should really listen to this Curtis King album. Look, I think you'll enjoy it. And then he's going to say, mother, pause this. Where are the breaths at?
Yeah.
It's like we hyper-focus on so many things, and I can look at that and say, you're just looking for something to dislike about it because you do not like to see somebody doing something in this. Because I'm sure they're asking the same questions you're asking, but they don't have the same feeling of, I'm proud to see my friend do this, right? I don't know how I feel about being in that space, but I'm proud to see my friend doing this. They're looking at that as, if you don't help me, then you're against me. So let me find something to break down in what you're doing. I can see that a mile away. But for instance, there's a producer named Produced by Pac, who I didn't even know was such a brilliant mind in branding and marketing. And he's actually helping me with my merchandise right now. But he makes a suggestion. He's like, man, what if you working on the intro? He's like, what if you take her spoken word piece and put it over just the pianos? Him just saying that, it digested my mind for a second. I kind of played it, and then I tried it, and I was like, that's a brilliant idea. That's exactly what I'm getting at. So that's why I can't be closed off to it. But when it comes to like folks that just making these nitpicky things, I'm like, one, you don't know my workflow. I don't know your workflow. and it's almost like folks will volunteer what they would do, and they don't allow you to be great at what you already done.
Yeah.
They don't even allow the process to play out. And it's like, do I walk in your studio and tell you, no, don't do Pro Tools like this. Do it like, no, I'm the type of person when I come in the studio, this is your space. I respect it. It's your dojo. If you ask me for help, I'll make a suggestion. If I feel like there's a way that I can improve upon what we're already doing, cool. But I'm not volunteering that when you've got your flow and it works. There's a reason why we're both in the room. There's a reason why this person's in the live stream. Let's not forget about that, right? I haven't always had that confidence though, because there'll be a lot of times where I'll be like, either defend. I have not. I have not had that because I was always afraid of it looking like arrogance.
Okay, I can see that part.
Because it's like, oh, you're some
but
know-it-all.
That's because of that early programming, right?
Yes,
that had to
course.
be programmed somewhere early on.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
a little bit of water on your fire had to have been spread.
For sure. For sure.
Which was probably unnecessary. Well, I mean, obviously it was unnecessary because had it been stoked, it would be even greater, right? Because that you had to work through those things though, right?
I did, but you know what? Those calluses build up strength.
That's true.
I need that. I needed to go through my own versions of trauma. And I'm not taking any of that off the plate. Could it have made things a lot easier, a lot earlier? Yeah.
Where's it from? Parental stuff?
Maybe parental, maybe a little.
I mean,
bit of
I'm sure you've thought about it,
but I'm sure you've traced it. I don't think it's parental. I think it's more so being around kids that I looked up to and didn't recognize they admired me, but didn't know how to express it.
You're probably spot on with that,
right?
Because I've seen that in you.
I was in LAUSD, at Curtis Middle School. It's where I get my name from. Where I was the most insecure kid that I could be, and I conquered those insecurities. I became Curtis King. So at Curtis Middle School, there's a lot of kids that I looked up to, and they were like the little homies of like the dope dealers in the city. So it was like they were like the ones that all the girls wanted. They had all the new gear and all of that stuff, and they would look at me like a complete cornball, like, "Oh, you're so wholesome, Curtis." And I used to think that was an insult, or they would be like, "Oh, you feeling yourself? You got your new shoes and you think you tight because you got some Sauconys or whatever." So I think a lot of that is me also giving a lot of energy for a lot of years and not knowing when it's okay to turn it off because you're not like that. And people are going to accept whatever they accept. The one thing that you have control over is who you consistently show up as. And there's way too many people that I have done good by for that to be a question. But it's still going to be a question because people will make an image of you. If they already like, for PC versus Mac users, they've already made up in their mind why their machine is a superior machine. Sure. And if you show them something, they're like, nah, it's not AirDrop. So it's like, I understand those pre-biases exist. And I'm okay because I know that if the tables would turn and I saw the same benefits of what's in front of me, maybe I would be the same way. But now I'm at a place where I can have an inner dialogue that is not driven by what somebody said to me. It might excite a dialogue in me, but the dialogue is so strong now and so stoic that it's like, you know better than that. Now go back out there and, say thank you for the gift that they tried to give you, but it's not for you.
That part of you, I wonder if, because I'm thinking about like picturing, because I do it. I watch you on live. I hear what you're creating. No part of my brain ever goes to, what he should do. Like, that just never happens.
That doesn't happen to me either.
But I'm saying, but this
when I go watch somebody, I'm not thinking about that.
But the fact that you're aware that does happen.
Yeah.
I feel like that's rooted in your politeness. It's rooted in wherever your politeness comes from. It's rooted in that. It's rooted in your grace. It's rooted in your care of people. Because there is this underlying thing, even when you're talking about it. It's perplexing to you simultaneously as it is to, like, because you're always, you're not even worried about necessarily the action. You're always worried about what's behind the action. And you consistently talk about that. And that's the part that I wonder. I don't know where you sit with this, Eddie. Like, maybe I need more of that. I don't know if because I can tell you right now for a fact, I just don't have that anymore. Like, it's not in me. I don't
what
ever.
What part are you talking about specifically? The caring of what's
of what
behind?
anyone has to say. Really. Like, I don't, because I know. Look, and this is why. Again, as somebody that I admire as an artist, I respect as an artist. I can't imagine that someone of your caliber could possibly think anybody has anything to contribute to what it is that you're creating unless you intentionally allow them to do it. Otherwise, there is no better Kurt expert than Kurt. And so again, when I'm hearing, I assume when I hear something from you, that is exactly how you wanted it to sound. And so I'm just like, that's what Curtis's music sounds like.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know. No, in fact, I know. Culture has not necessarily completely caught up to that. It is happening, though. It's what the internet did. It's a product of the internet. The product of the internet proved without a shadow of a doubt that, for instance, the greatest mastering engineer in the world is only valuable to people who seek that out. That's it. That's what the internet proved. Because we'll listen to SoundCloud, bedroom rap, and run those numbers through the roof.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's somebody who's completely that part. But dude, trust me, as someone who mixes and masters, that tormented me. It tormented me for the majority of my life. How come my shit can't sound like this Tupac album?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, how come it doesn't sound exactly like that?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Years and years. And then it just dawned on me. Like, the many thousands of little variables that go into making that thing happen isn't just based on a work. It's literally based on that engineer's years of experience, everything that they learned, everything that they've learned. How would you duplicate that? You can't. So when I listen to Curtis King, I can't duplicate that because that's literally what he sounds like. This is what Curtis King sounds like.
Well, let me add a wrench to that.
Yeah.
Let me add a wrench to that because I think you're making a
Please.
supremely valid point in that nobody can be a better Curtis King than Curtis King in that moment. But I also am of the realization that aside from Curtis King, Dewan recognizes that the best, in terms of my opinion, the best work that I have created were the moments that I said, I need to ask for help. Oh gosh, when he became my only producer I was going to, he was engineering my music. I said, okay, I'm going to trust in you to mix this, do the beats. And it's not because I have any doubt in your skill, because you were immaculate at all this. Yeah. But even when he was becoming a newer engineer, I was still like, man, like, I'm not gonna have any control over this. Right. And I can be a control freak with that. And so I did that, and that was the first time an album of mine went number 4. Well, Curtis King has his own way, but Curtis King having his own way is going to be a slower process and may even have a ceiling if I'm only bouncing ideas off the same brain that I'm not allowing to evolve through dialogue with folks who give me a different perspective. Like, I hear what you're saying about having that default of being able to, I know how to shut that off when I know it's like, dog, you're just being a hater. Yeah. Right? Like, when it's just like, and that's my judgment of whether or not I should respond back. If you're giving me criticism, that's fine. You have the right to do that. But whether or not I accept it and let it go through my filtration system has to do with one major factor. Is it constructive? Are you constructing something over the thing that you're critiquing? Or are you coming in here and saying this verse is just whack, it's trash? I can't do nothing with that. Like, at its own value of the words, I can't do anything with trash. Yeah. I can't. That's why I have a lot of these words blocked, because I'm like, there's no reason for, if you cannot describe, and that's what a lot of folks are, even with the internet evolving the way it is, a lot of folks love using these trigger words for creators. but they don't have anything else of any value to give over the top of that. I can't take anything you say serious. But what I do understand is that also in being somebody that is in charge of nurturing and growing a community, I have to have an ear out to see what they want. Or I'm going to be in a situation like I was last year where I was pushing out products that nobody wanted. Because it was like, Curtis King's been here long enough. I got this taken care of. And I'm pushing all of this stuff out. And they're like, we support you, but that's kind of not what we need. We want vocal mixing. Vocal mixing? I'm not even a vocal mixing engineer. Like, that's what we want. We want beginner vocal mixing. As you're learning, we want to learn what you're learning. Because we have desires as producers to become artists. Our artists have desires to become producers. And so by me not listening to that, I also see how that can kill the bottom line. Creatively, though, I can also see how folks who have been in streams with me, and they're in there for an average of 6 to 7 hours. It's not like they're jumping in and jumping out. They're with me the entire process because I can go back and look at the stream and see them active in the chat every hour on the hour. They know more about a perspective of me than I can have because I'm in it. It's like that mirror of objects appearing closer than they appear. They're seeing things about me to where I have a guy named Lazy Eye Music. He's a guitar player. He'll send the guitar at the perfect time when he knows I'm getting ready to go to a Q&A and make a break from the music. He'll send it in the key, BPM, and it's like, you knew I needed this. But had I been in this place where it's like, no, I have to get this idea out, those moments don't get created. I don't meet someone like that. Or an Aaron Barber who played beautiful synthesizers and keys over the intro of this project. If I don't have an openness to that, I also don't have an openness to the good. Yes, there are some people who have no experience in this and no business giving opinions. But I also know that in order for me to find those hidden gems, I have to be open to it all at some level. Whether it gets to the filtration system has to do a lot with how I eyeball test that and say, we know what this is. We know what that, like, nobody wants to feel like a hater. So they wait till you do something that they disagree with to show their hate.
Yeah.
So when I see that, I know where the energy's coming from. So I'm not even going to acknowledge it. And I used to acknowledge it all. And guess what happened? People left the chat because they're like, why are you so hyper-focused on the negative and not focused on the folks who are here for you? Because I started to internalize it, the good, and expect the good, and then and just say that's part of the normal decoration of this room. It's supposed to be this. It's supposed to be positive. No, because if there's not some kind of pushback, it doesn't inspire something different. And that's what keeps me so excited and so youthful in the creation process, is recognizing that at the same time that I do know a lot about what I'm doing and I am in control, I also don't know shit. And I tell myself that because I want to be surprised by the process.
But you know a lot of shit.
I do. I know a lot more.
I mean,
but,
you
but
know a lot.
I do, but the bar I feel like of not knowing it raises every time that I recognize that I'm at this place and I'm in control. And then the minute that I'm like, yeah, I'm in control, I got this, I got to go into the MS-DOS settings and figure out how to uncode something I downloaded, or the computer starts wigging out. It's almost like a reminder of, don't go too high, don't go too low, just stay here, because your best ideas are produced not when you're pushing your chest out and you're kind of being. My best performances might come from those because it's a show. It's a show of performance, a physical performance. But when I'm in there in creation mode, to me it is so sacred that I could never blame music as the reason why I have a lack of inspiration. I could never say words like writer's block or beat block because it's such a slap in the face to the creative process that is coming from an endless supply of inspiration. For me to say things like, oh man, the music's got me uninspired. No, you got to dig back into what's going on in your life that's got you already in general drained energetically. And now you're bringing all of that, sloth energy to the music, and then you blame the music. So I say that to say, I don't think that I get into that place if I'm not having an openness to everything in this process.
You're a good collaborator. You feel like you are?
No, I don't. I actually don't. That's a great question because I actually don't. I
See,
think
that's scary to me.
I'm not a good collaborator. I am not the type of person that, at least the producers that I have worked with in person, either I give up too much freedom for them to go do their thing and I don't really have a lot to contribute to it except for like an opinion about arrangement. But sometimes I get in studios with folks who are crazy on the keys, and I don't know where I'm supposed to add that because I'm not crazy on the keys. I know how to make a beat. I know how to make a Curtis King beat. But in collaboration mode, where I'm forced to come into someone else's world of musicianship and they understand things by minor and major scales, I'm not fluid in that. So sometimes I can be a little bit of like a fish out of water. But the collaborations that have worked are the ones where, for this album, for instance, I started off with a palette, no judgment. I said, whatever sound grabs me in the first 20 seconds, I'm picking it, I'm running it, and I'm not even, if I hit that snare 2 times, that's it. I'm not going through this analysis paralysis. I create this world and then bring those friends into this world. The collaboration process is water. But you have me go in a studio, which I've been many times, and go produce for an artist that I have not built with, and I don't know where they're at in their life. I don't know if they're going through some kind of drama with, their significant other. Like, these factors all factor into making the best music possible. Even if it's a song that has nothing to do with that situation, I know that you need a release. Let me go do that creatively through these drums and give you an open soundscape to go in. But I think that's why I haven't been that good at collaboration, is because I feel like that factor is too important to be ignored for me to give the best to a collaboration.
Yeah, I think too, to add to that, I think that there's something that we're not touching on. And okay, like Pablo Picasso. Okay. Notoriously didn't work well with others. But we know now, right, through work, is that's what it took to make what he made, right? Whereas an architect lets out this creative juice, but needs literally tons of other people to sweat and have equity.
Sure.
I think what I'm hearing, you're somewhere in this arena. You're trying to build things at all costs, right?
I agree.
And so I think that would help with you taking that leap into being more collaborative with artists, because again, as I'm hearing you speak, I'm listening to it, and now I really would like to be in a studio with you. For pre 5 minutes ago, I didn't want to be in a studio with you ever.
Why?
Just because I've watched you work, and I'm like, we're not. He'll get mad at me. Like, well, that's the way I pictured. That's what I pictured in my head.
Are you the type to be like, change that?
No, I think that you, through practices, I'm not taking that away at all. I've watched you practices. Your ability to turn it on, even when nothing is coming, that part I don't ever necessarily choose to do that. But I'd like to know more of that.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. I just know that I don't do that. I know that, like, I can tell you this, I don't think I've recorded something in the last 2 years that I didn't absolutely put out. Otherwise, it just didn't, nothing came out. Like, that was what came out.
Yeah.
And, but that's long hours in a dark room by myself.
Yeah. Like, and
all the time.
And I try to honor that. I think that's where, if I go back into collaboration now, mind you, I'm giving you a reference of collaboration when I was actively in studios years and years ago. You're talking about probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think that, one, the biggest shift for me is the confidence that no matter who you put me in a studio with, if you give me enough time to really vibe with this person, and not like in the the vibe. I'm talking about like genuinely see the things that you value.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me what music you're listening to. I don't care if it's something from the 70s, if it's something from the 80s, 90s, if it's something that came out last week. If I can find about 3 or 4 references, I'm not going to copy from any of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of sponge up the energy, and I'm going to give you something that's like sonically, like, this makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Because I'm listening now, because I feel like now I'm a better producer, better beat maker, but a better producer now because I'm able to look at it and say, you have a type of voice that needs space. I'm not going to give you this trapped out beat that has all this stuff going on because I need to make sure that sonically you have a space. So I need to make sure I don't overproduce the record. That's why when I reached out to you and I was like, man, let's do something. It's at a time where I'm like, you would force me to have to underproduce the record and leave room.
Yeah,
and
I'm
that
thinking,
excites me.
I'm thinking, I agree. I agree. I think it's something that I would find challenging, but I like the challenge. And then, of course it's you. Obviously I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's you. Right. But yeah, I've watched you work and I've gone, like what would be happening in that situation? Because I wouldn't, I know you said, or you mentioned would I be changing everything? I think it would be quite the opposite. It would be like, that's what you're making. Okay. So, and so I wouldn't know where, because I don't know where that is with me. Like, I don't know what if Eddie walks in and goes, hey, I don't like that. Yeah. I don't know where I'm at with that. Right. And just recently, like I'm working on that more being in the Invisible Ponchos because Gene flows the other half of that. Right. And so it's been different this time. Because I am trying to allow that to happen more, because in the past, I don't think I've never even worked with a producer who doesn't let me arrange. Like that's never happened,
That's
Kurt.
crazy.
I know. I know. I've told that to many rappers and they've been like, whoa, that's crazy.
But that's the variable I think that gets me excited because you're going to ask for something that I've never been asked for. And if I know the rhythm of our conversation,
right?
The rhythm of the way that we change and critique things, it's going to be like a podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to be like an unofficial podcast where you'll say, hey, yo, Kurt, like I've heard you say this many times. Hey, yo, Kurt, so I wanted to ask you a question. And I can just hear it already. To me, that's the importance of building with people before doing a project. I'll give you the prime example. I've known the homie Jay Kasai. Shout out to the homie Jay Kasai. He executive produced this album. I've known him since 2013, 12, when I was campaigning for paid dues. I got videos of him being like number 14 or whatever of the person I talked to about why I should be on paid dues. I've known him for years. In total, I've probably only pulled up on him one time to make a beat for him. But even that was like, I just need you to make a beat for me. I'm going to pay you this amount of money. We weren't necessarily building. I go have a podcast with him. And we're saying a lot of things that are very much alike. And sonically, we're in the same place. And I'm like, bro, I don't know if you'd be open to this or, how it's going to go. But something tells me you would be an amazing person to bounce these ideas off of. Because if it's just on me, I'm going to do the same things that I already know I'm going to do. His being involved in this, and he wasn't in every single session, but his being involved in this and having a voice that said, you don't think that's doing a little bit much for the third verse? Like maybe you should just bring the drum. Like maybe you should let the drums breathe.
Wait, but so he's telling you this. What is your what do you dude? Give me your unadulterated, the first
I trust him.
2 seconds of
I trust him.
Hey man, does it?
No.
Even when he's saying, hey,
I had to when I made that decision for him to be involved. I had a dialogue with myself that wouldn't allow me to have that initial reaction. It's almost like I feel a burn.
Yeah.
I feel a burn in my heart that's like the one that's ready to react.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fully go through. Yeah. Because it's like, that felt like something. It felt like something real. But listen to it. Right. And see if it makes sense.
Because you've tested it enough times to know it's not.
I've done Curtis King enough times, enough years, and I recognize that I don't know it all. I don't know it all. And I don't want to know it all. I want to have somebody come in there and be like he just said, he said one simple thing that changed the trajectory of the rest of the project. He doesn't even understand. He doesn't recognize why that was so important. We did a collaboration. He was like, I was kind of, and the way he did it wasn't like forceful. I kind of, said it my own way, but he was like, I was kind of hoping, he thinks it a voice note. I was kind of hoping that she was going to let that beat just ride out towards the end. And then I had to think of, why did I add those drums to begin with? And then I started recognizing the ego in that decision. I want to show them my musicianship. I want to show them I want to go crazy on these drums. The record doesn't care about that. If you want to get to the best record possible, you got to take all that out the way. So if I can do that for myself, imagine how I can eyeball a comment and be like, come on now. Like I know what you're trying to achieve.
The filter system is always on.
The filter system is better than it's ever been now because it's like, dog, I know where that comes from. And I can tell when it's a young critique too. Not to say that the younger, because there's a producer in my community named HGC who's in his mid-teens, and he has suggestions that are beyond his years. And so it's the reason I'm open to listening to stuff. But when I look at folks jump in there and, your Butthead 47 on YouTube, like, I'm already looking skeptical. And then I look at the suggestion and it's like, you didn't even take the time, not to be, I'm going to sound like an asshole for saying this, but you didn't even take the time to like spell check my name. Yo, Curtis 1S. What you need to do, no. What you need to do is not tell me what I need to do. I don't know you.
Oh shit! It dawned on me that maybe I'm over here thinking I'm actually not. I think I might just be meaner than you because my mind immediately goes to you didn't even take the time to live 20 years worth of going. That's like
real.
That's where it really goes for me. I'm just like,
but this is the value of having a friendship like yours. Is that we, as a part of one of your friends, we need you to be that, to remind us sometimes of our own light. Because if I'm always aware of that, I'm going to be hypersensitive to so many things around me. Not saying that you are, but you're just big up in your friend.
Yeah.
If I live with that, I can't be in a place to accept the kind of things that happened during the process of this album. Right. So many things happened that were like,
it obviously served up gems.
Right. Like
it did, for sure.
And then looking at
which is why I'm so curious about it, because I'm like, I'm saying all this, but you are definitely, you and this project are proof positive that it obviously works. Like what you're talking about obviously works. Yeah. There isn't arguing that part. And that's the part that I can buy into that, because I'm just talking, at that point, I'm just talking about the level of artistry. Okay, it obviously works.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to work it backwards. Like,
how do I even? I'll tell you this: during the live streams of the 7 hours, there's probably a good 4 hours I don't even talk to the community, and they're used to it now. Right? That took some time because at first it was like all the producers that were on YouTube, and that's probably the reason why I don't have the highest viewership. Not that that matters, but because when folks go in there, sometimes they're like, man, shouldn't you have more? You got 200,000 subscribers. There's only 60, 70, 80 people. But I'm like, it's quality control. Yeah. And these are the most diehard. Yeah. These are the most creative. That's
they are. And I've been in those chat rooms.
Right. And you see the energy with that. How can I not listen to, you may know something about me that I can't notice because I'm too close proximity-wise to the creative process. I'm too married to it. I'm too me to recognize that I do kind of do too much in the outro sometimes. I really don't use my normal speaking voice when I'm rapping a lot. Why don't I try that?
Or when you're teaching.
Or when I'm teaching, yes. I go into YouTube. It's Curtis getting Curtis. I go into that mode and I don't recognize it because in my mind, it's, you got to be sharp.
Yeah.
You got to make sure that you sound like you know what you're talking about.
You have been a consummate professional, Kurt, or at least what you were putting outwardly.
Sure.
You've been like that since the first day I met. I mean, it's why I think why we were so drawn to you, because of the lack of that in the overall, arena. It's rare. I mean, we know that. Most people in this business know that that part is much more rare than you would think, right? Like you would think that it would be very prevalent.
And it's not
but
just
it's not prevalent.
Let's make sure they know it's not just the artists who don't show that unprofessionalism. It's the higher up you go, the more surprise you get.
The more surprise. I mean, how many times have you been in a room with somebody where you're like, don't you guys own all of this thing? And
you guys are millionaires and you're idiots.
Yeah.
How did you do it? You can do it. I know, with a little bit of time.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that you've always had. On a quick sidebar, does that come from, is that parental?
For what?
That part of
the professionalism part?
Yeah.
My pops. Absolutely. Okay. My pops is, he has always had a business that he either owned. I've only known him as a business owner. And towards the more recent years, he's been a professor.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up in a household where you pick your pants up.
So here's the DNA.
He is part of that, but also too, like, with him coming from like a military background with my grandparents.
Okay,
So it started to
we're
make sense.
stacking it up now. Okay.
What also shows, even like you said, like the nicer side is the empathy from my mom, who has been in church since I was born. And
that part I see.
So
like
it's
that part I see for sure.
It's like this. It's a beautiful balance of what I used to think was an insult. The worst word you could call me was not a curse word. It was wholesome.
Oh,
like you're just some happy, squeaky clean. To me, it negated all the things that were calluses, the things that were not the so pretty things that were real to me, and I feel like they were not acknowledging. But what I didn't understand until probably I say 3 years ago is I think it was Alan Watts that said it on a YouTube video, in that society has made you has made you believe that being wholesome is a bad thing, when if you break the word down, you're whole. You have to be whole. In order to be whole, you have to have the whole experience.
Right.
You got to have the grimy things that happen, and you also got to have the beautiful moments. You got to have the setbacks. You got to have the up. And I'm like, that does describe me. So now I embrace that as not being some, character like, it's the word, it's a bad example, but Dr. Huxtable.
Right.
But
bad example.
Bad example. But I mean, of what it used to be. A square, exactly.
Sure. For you kids who,
for those who are like, you mean the guy? No, not that. But now understanding that, no, that is me. Remember one time I was driving around with me, Noah, and Ab-Soul. We were driving in Ontario to Authentic's Boutique, to a pop-up shop in a cipher. And Ab-Soul was in the back seat. He's listening. And I played a song for him that I did. And I was like, it was my aggressive Curtis. And he was like, "You're a nice guy, Curtis." And the way he said it, like, it hurt so much at that moment.
Wow.
And Noah kind of like, he was, Noah's laugh. Like, he'll laugh through the uncomfortable. He's like, "Ugh," like, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
But he's like, you're nice, Curtis. You're such a nice guy. Because I guess the aggression wasn't authentic enough or whatever.
Oh.
And so I always had that chip that's like, man, like, y'all really don't know who I am. And the presentation I have given you is not fully accurate of who I know myself to be, because there is within me, you ask any of my exes, there is within me an asshole, a smart ass, a guy that can't stop making jokes. Everything's a joke. And that does exist in me. There does exist a perfectionist to an annoying level on all levels. And that part of me wasn't being seen, but I was like, oh, you don't really go through things. And so now I'm in a place where I have given so much of myself to this content creation process through conversations like we've had. I got archives that y'all have of like there's no way that I don't tell my life story and don't dig into these archives, because these are like always like monumental in my life, at least monumental moments where it's like I'm at this stage now. Okay, he's in here, he's doing this. But I'm at a place now where I accept that title and recognize that it takes a full human being. It takes the whole spectrum for me to deliver the way that I deliver.
I like that. I like looking at it in with those lenses, because I think I don't think that I necessarily do that well yet. I wonder, do you acknowledge now that character that you created as a response to how you felt treated, how you felt, slighted, whatever it was, that character that became that early Curtis King, right? The one who was completely left field, right? Consistently pointing a finger into like traditionalist stomachs, and has since, at least if you're in the Southern California area, birthed a lot of artists the ability to be able to do that. Do you give yourself that credit? Because I can tell you, as a studier of the culture,
right,
there's a direct line. Like I watched it happen. I watched you with the high top fade and the bright colored shirts. Eventually made it okay for a lot of things to be okay.
Yeah.
That first person kicking that door and doing those things, and you were doing it as a response.
Right.
But I wonder now if you can, if you've been able to look back on that and gone like, oh, okay, me doing those initial things made it okay for a lot of people after that.
Okay. I have not even thought about that.
Well, that for sure has happened.
That's crazy.
That for sure, without a doubt, 100%, that has happened. And I've watched it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't, obviously we can talk off there, but I would never like just mention, but I see where the direct lines come from different people.
That's wild.
and I think that only comes from, it isn't necessarily just being hyper observational. It is just doing this long enough to be able to watch the peaks and valleys, right?
Yeah.
And then you can just apply it. I can apply, and that's happened a lot of times. And that's what I wonder if, as your friend, I wonder if when you're able in your own time to really sit with that, what the next version will be.
No, well,
because once you truly just know that it just is. You didn't, because here's the thing, Kurt, you didn't plan on doing that. You didn't plan. Okay, so the fact that it happens, it just is. You don't have a stake in it. You don't have an argument against it. Yeah. It just happened. That's what happened. But you can now look at it, and if you accept it now, I imagine that will produce a whole nother version of Kurt.
It's happening for the first time. A rebranding is happening, and all I did was show up as myself this time.
Yeah.
But except the biggest difference is that now it's an older version of me. One, I didn't really look at it like that because I always felt like I was the product of the people that I studied.
Sure.
And I used to have a picture of this picture of Kanye that I found on the internet where it showed the college dropout version in a polo t-shirt. Mm-hmm. Then it showed the beautiful dark twisted fantasy. It showed the college or graduation album. We had the Venetian glasses, and it just showed me that every legendary iconic artist, pop icon goes through this. And I would look at this and say, this 100%. Is a ingredient, not just to be, I don't care about the icon part, but being massively successful is being able to have this many at-bats to continue to hit again. And I thought to myself, like, okay, the strategic part of me, which is the part that I've been trying to hone in and trying to like control more, the strategic part of me was always trying to figure out, well, how can I do this and how can I calculate this out? Okay, if I wear this, okay, maybe if I do this subtly, like a lot of that comes from beat battling too. Mm-hmm. Where being in a beat battle, I was always thinking about, it sounds so hilarious, but what is the most on a human psychological level, what is the most dominating, what is the most intimidating color? And I looked it up, and I think at the time they said the study showed that it was red. I would wear red at the beat battles.
Gotcha.
Just as a subtle, you've seen this, and now you're in a competition. I'm sweating in this thing. You look back at the beat battles, I'm wearing red, right?
So you can see that the mastery switch was already on.
Not at the time.
Yes, it was.
I didn't see it. No, I didn't recognize it.
But you can see in retrospect. Yeah, it's always been on.
Yeah, but what's the use of a weapon if you don't know how to aim it? Mm-hmm. And so there was definitely signs of mastery. I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. Yeah. I was just like, man,
you needed the reps, but it was there.
It was there, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Again,
yeah.
Through this whole conversation, I've really been trying to tie a line to that because there is something to be said. Look, if we exist on a spectrum, which I believe we do, I believe we all exist on a spectrum, and there is the ultimate good alive right now, just like there's the ultimate bad, just like cold and hot are the same thing, just at the opposite ends of a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bunch of people that occupy the centers of those spectrum.
Yeah.
So just statistically, dog, statistically, you're rare.
Yeah.
And
appreciate
trust me, I get the fight of your mind to not want to give that too much attention. I get it. Mm-hmm. I get it. Mm-hmm. For your own sanity, for your own peace of mind, I get it. Mm-hmm. but it is true.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when Butthead 509 is in the chat room,
shout out to Butthead.
just statistically, dude, statistically,
Sure.
he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking.
He doesn't, and this is why when you ask me what the significance of the album, this album being number one on iTunes hip hop charts, I can look at that and I'm not showing evidence to anybody else anymore except for myself.
Oh, I get that.
You know what I mean?
Like, I definitely get that from you.
It's no longer the evidence of like, see, I am relevant. No. It's showing myself every time that you show me doubt, because there's been times during this process, I don't care how developed I am creatively and where I'm at. There was times during this process where I'm working on a song and I'm already 4 hours into it. It's a song called Skincare. I'm 4 hours into it and only have 1 hour left on that SD card.
Yeah.
And if I do not do anything, I have to now wait an hour or whatever long it takes to dump those SD cards. So it's like, this song needs to come together. And at that last hour, after I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I choose to do this? Why did I say this on video? I'm married to this idea. I have to make an album on camera. I'm having all this dialogue. A little hook comes to me. Come on, let me talk my, come on, let me talk my, and I say that in the video and you're watching the video out of order, but I said that and it's like, that's it. I've been here before.
Yeah.
So I just do this now to keep showing myself the evidence that you know what you're doing. And knowing that, absorb some of the confidence, but don't let that be the thing that you're always leading with, because I feel like that also blinds you to, you want to be in a situation where you don't know what you're doing. You want this to mean like, I fill up with so much emotion when I look at that for the first 5 seconds, when I looked at myself, I was refreshing the iTunes charts and I saw number one. I just looked at it and I was like, yo. And I whispered it. The homie Yo Gosh was on the side of me. He was editing a music video we shot that day because we weren't done, like working. And I'm like, yo. And then I screamed out, hey, yo. And I just like let it out. My wife comes downstairs from my son. I'm like, look at that. Am I tripping? Check your phone. Am I tripping? After that 5 or 10 seconds, back to normal.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like, I'm sharing this just to let the folks who believe in me, who truly support this, know that it's not in vain. I know sometimes you may support and think like, man, why doesn't Curtis have a bigger following? Or people use like the most hated term, most disrespectful term to me now is slept on. Don't tell me I'm slept on. Don't tell me I'm slept on when you see me busting my ass to do this work. And you think that I'm doing this just so you can tell me that, well, not enough people are watching. I wish more people were watching. Yeah, well, don't we always? But don't you think that you should be further encouraging me to just push? Like, shouldn't you be looking at me and saying, bro, like, I don't care who's not looking. Based upon who's looking right now, it's an abundance. You're giving me my roses right now by telling me the folks that I've inspired to fully be them, instead of telling me, well, I mean, you know, you think that it's only locally? You didn't give me that perspective. You think it's only locally? Like, you know, somebody else would say, well, yeah, you might have made an impact in IE, but who else cares? You know, if I live in Montana, I don't know what IE is. So there's people like that though. And now I just had to turn it off to where I'm like, all I'm doing now is constantly nurturing that trauma within me, that part of me that felt like I always had something to prove, that try hard energy within me that's now like, I am so mature at this level that I can even love on that version of Curtis.
Yeah.
And not judge him. Right? Because there was a time where I just cared so much about feedbacking so much. Now I care, but it's because I care.
Yeah, and I do feel, I feel 100% that that's what it is. It just through this conversation, it's clarified it even more for me in that I do just think that that part comes from what is behind whatever the message is that you're getting. You do care. Essentially, I think it's, I mean, from my observations, dude, I think it's just a fundamental part of your build, because that is truly there. Because if we look at the math of it all, you have no reason to give a fuck at all. You literally have zero reason to give a fuck at all. You being on iTunes again, at a top spot again, proves that. And it doesn't matter whatever critique anybody has of any way. Oh, well, he did it like this. He did. It doesn't matter.
Can we
it literally doesn't matter.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Because that was something I talked about last night, and I knew in my mind we had to have this conversation.
Okay.
And I share this because I honestly just don't. I don't want to share this just to throw out my perspective. I want to hear your perspective, and if you have a perspective as well, Eddie. Like, so for those that don't know, I offered a reward for the folks that could show proof of pre-ordering my $5.99 album. That's the cheapest you can make an album on iTunes, right? It's a strategic thing that I've been doing for many projects, right? So I had 2 EPs that went number 4 before because I offered a reward in exchange for that. For some people in the industry, they'll look at the type of rewards I'm giving, like online courses, things that are not part of the normal artist bag. Like, I haven't even mentioned merch, but like I gave them courses, beats, plugins, sound packs from a sound pack company that I created with the homie Oh Gosh called Slap Experts. And I offered that to them, even though the price of some of these courses are between $97 and $500. And I said, here's something that means a whole lot to me and something that's going to be incredibly valuable to you. That's the exchange. I don't care if you love the music, hate the music, doesn't matter to me. I want to accomplish this goal. And there's folks who are going to discredit that. Already I'm hearing it. They're discrediting it because it's like, well, you cheated your way up there to it. And it's like 2 things. One, we gotta start with the petty thing. Isn't it funny that in a game that's already rigged, it's only bad when the independent find a loophole?
There's no.
Yeah.
In a game that you can pay your way through radio, you can pay your way through all of these different things. Isn't it funny when, when somebody
pay,
you have to pay. Isn't it funny that when the everyday regular guy finds a way to be a part of the conversation and your favorite artist is now sitting below that list that includes that, now all of a sudden there's something wrong with it and we need to change the system. I just think that's funny. That's the one petty thing. The second thing is, instead of criticizing something new, how come we don't celebrate the fact that how many other people could offer that kind of a bundle?
Right.
And then on top of that, how many people have built the trust that people would see value in getting that, right? That's not a topic of conversation. I knew that wasn't going to be when I first started this campaign. It's not respected, right, amongst mostly the industry peers. But I look at that and I'm like, that is a product of the work that I've been doing over the last X amount of years, that I've been able to be in a place where we created a plugin. I, myself, and the homie Nicholas Gray and Lee, who programmed this over in the UK, our own plugins, Curtis King plugins, our own sound packs that we created the themes for, created the artwork for, put the sounds together for, produced for, these beats that I've produced and I've done in live streams. Like, I'm doing this all. Right. And instead of celebrating that, we're going to talk about the semantics of it. That's all right. Because before this even happened, I already won. And I declared that I already won. Because I said what I was going to do. I did it. And I did not neglect one responsibility that I had to my son or my family in the process. And I did it in the midst of the biggest turmoil of my business ever. The biggest turmoil my business ever gone through. I pulled myself back up when things were looking like they were going to crumble, for like they did for a lot of people during the pandemic. Mine went post-pandemic. In the midst of that, I pulled myself back up and did not stop. For that, can't take it away. In 10 years, when somebody asks, yo, how many number 1 albums, or did you have a number 1 album? Yes. Nobody's going to care that, oh, he was offering a bundle. Nobody's going to care. Like the people who do care, what they say, the ones that care matter, and the ones that don't that don't care, or I forget the saying, but along the lines of the ones that care matter, and the ones that I don't know if I forget the saying, but it's along the lines of that. But basically, the folks that are nitpicking at these things, they're such short-term critiques that we're not looking at this thing from a big picture, and it's not their goal, it's not their purpose to do that.
It is not their purpose.
When I look back at this and I recognize, like, I came, I saw, I conquered. There's some things I did not do, and that is okay. I can rest with this and recognize that never did I ever half-ass this process. Never did I cheapen my love for this culture. even on this beat, even on this project where it's dominated by so many different subgenres, you still hear boom bap beats, right? You still hear the very genre that I fell in love with 20-something years ago, 20 plus years ago when I was just a listener. And yeah, I did that all in the house. I did that all in the house on a program that, it's like I pick all the things that people demonize. I picked the FL Studio to record in. Oh, you do an FL Studio. That's not professional gear. That's not industry standard. Okay. You don't have an Apollo? Oh, man, what is that? What are you working with? Okay. You know what I mean? It's always something.
That's so crazy, man. Yeah.
And I say all of that just to be like, you cannot discredit. My thing is always this. Say what you say because you're entitled to have an opinion. Only question I'll ever have for you is, why do you want me to know that opinion? What's the energy behind it? Why is it important for you to want me to know that you feel that way? Because that's more important than what you're saying. Everybody has an opinion.
I mean, psychologically, I think we know why.
Oh, of course,
I mean,
of course.
It's just validation. And, you know what I mean? And most people on the planet seek validation. It's part of the human experience. And if you don't have the tools to seek validation from within, you're always going to seek it from without. That's, but like when it gets to like, I've lost complete patience for ridiculousness.
Yeah.
I'm
you
a fucking scientist. That's the way I look at it all.
Yeah.
It makes no sense for there to even be a conversation about you. What would they like? You cheated? Like, what do you mean? You literally. This is, and it pains me, honestly. It pains me that these kind of conversations still exist within the genre that I love so much, right? But it is very genre specific in a lot of ways because we're the youngest still. We're still the youngest out of all the other genres. Hip hop is still the youngest, even though it's the universal language now.
Right.
It's still the youngest.
Right.
We're barely figuring out what being an adult hip hop artist looks like, just barely now. So when I put it in perspective like that, I accept that it exists, but I don't give it even the second thought, because if I was a painter and that's what I did, I painted and I said, hey, I want my painting to be listed as the #1 painting. If you do that, I'll give you some more paintings. That nobody would say shit.
Well, you don't have to.
It's literally like I'm making something that I'm
providing a service that you deem as valuable.
Right.
And if you're going to go down that road, why is it valuable?
Right.
Because now you got to dig into the work that I've done outside of this.
Exactly. That's what's more important.
Ignore that part.
That part is more important, Kurt, because if I'm a fan of your art and I'm buying art and you're like, here, take some more art.
Yeah.
If you get this art. Because that's what all those things are. No matter, these are all creations of your mind, your hand, your essence. They're creations.
Right.
And you get those if you... I don't understand where the cheat is at.
And you know what also is important to understand for those folks who feel that way, because I want to make sure that I'm not trying to convince them of anything else, but I want them to at least be exposed to this perspective. 2 things. 1, if you've never toured before, you don't have a conversation in this, because bundle packs are literally the saving grace on some tour spots.
Oh my God.
When you have a t-shirt, CD, and you bundle it together and you say, you know what, 25 hot ones, I'll give you all of these. Do you know how many times that kept us fed on that tour?
Travis Scott, Ariana, Selena,
Tyler,
Kanye. But that's again, dude, like, this is what frustrates me.
Yeah.
If you don't know these things, for me, if you don't know that this is a mode of operation now, then you're not even you don't do what I do.
Yeah.
So I don't care what you have. It's like saying, I'm a bus driver, I'm gonna show you how to do a surgery. That's literally what that's the way. You could wear the doctor's uniform and all that, but that's what that is to me, Kurt. That really is to me.
With you.
And I get that that's hard to swallow for a lot of people. But you know what's not hard to swallow? It's not hard to swallow for the people who are willing to put in the work to find out whether or not that's true. To find out whether or not what I am saying is even true. Find it out. Because literally there's stats, there's studies, there's all of these things are out there. The only reason we're even having this conversation is because somebody said one time somewhere and it just spread that this is a way, here's an option to think. And I'm telling you, it's not an option.
Yeah.
If we're just following the math, it is not an option for you to go, hey, you shouldn't do that. The moment you even say that, Kurt, it's out of my head. Like I'm like, oh, okay, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That person doesn't know what they're talking about.
You're gonna always catch flack for doing something different anyway.
Absolutely.
But that's been happening since I chose to come in there with these bright T-shirts and be the only person in there. You come in here with these bright T-shirts and you don't have a rapper name. Jake One, a producer, told me I have the most unhip hop name when I was at Red Bull, and I was like, I was so like, because I obviously looked up to him, and I was like, I don't know if I'm mad at that.
It would not be mad at
right? I'm like, I have the most unhip hop name, and I'm like, so that means you're gonna remember me.
Different,
you want
to me,
right?
different nowadays. This is
at that time it wasn't as embraced for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I won't even fuck with an artist at all on any real level if they don't understand that different is the currency of life.
Man,
there's only one consistent thing in life, right?
Yeah.
Change.
Yeah.
Right. We all know. Okay, that's not a debatable thing.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's not a philosophy. That's a fact.
That's a fact of what it is. Yeah.
If you don't know that that's a fact, well, then that's a whole nother conversation that I don't need to have with you.
No, and you know
that's a 101 class. I'm not in 101.
And you know what I'm recognizing too, even in talking to you in this moment, is that most of those kind of critiques come from either the old guard or the offspring of the old guard. And
always,
and they're the ones that are now pushing this agenda because they've been told this since they were, 6 and 7, and now they're 12 and 14, and now they're like, no, this is the way that this should sound like. And it's like every generation comes, especially in the hip hop genre, to evolve this. Well, you're not going to evolve this doing the same things that's already been done before. The part of what made hip hop such a magnetizing genre is the fact that it was the opposite of what's going on. It was rebellious. So now, as folks have found their money in it, as folks have gotten comfortable with their legendary status, you're now going to rebel against the very rebellion that gave you your success. They're rebelling now against those standards of golden era hip hop because that's a part of the lineage of and the constant change of hip hop. So in the midst of this, what I recognize is this: like, I used to ask the question, like, how can, and I only use Kanye because he's a rapper and / producer, but I'm like, how can he in his mid 40s have such a strong appeal amongst 16 and 17-year-olds? What do they possibly have in common? Right? The 14-year-old girl, what could they possibly have in common with Kanye? Well, I mean, you think about all these different variables from the shoes, you think about his statements, just in fashion and the culture. Like him or hate him, the reason why there's that, I think, obsession and even an opinion is because, in relevance, is because people feel like he truly believes what he says. As whacked out as it may be, as crazy or as you may think that it's on point, you believe that crazy. Same thing with Trump. You believe that crazy. You believe everything he says. Like, you look at him and you're like, not that you believe that, if he says that he don't like something, you like, I agree that you don't like that. Even if you don't agree with what he don't like. I think those are the type of people that always have longevity. Those are terrible examples to show of it, but like a Snoop. Snoop has found his way from death row to the White House to churches doing gospel albums to Rastafarians. And Snoop has been the same Snoop no matter what uniform you put on him.
But I think that's the thing, though, right?
Yeah.
Is that I think, to add to that, because I do feel like authenticity is a huge thing. It is rare. That anything rare has value. But I would add to it that I think that what keeps the longevity of the artist, even subconsciously to the follower, to the fan, relevant, is that they acknowledge change. And if change is the currency of our lifetime, it is the thing that runs through all of us. It's the only thing that we can all simultaneously experience. If you naturally acknowledge that and never fight it, even subconsciously to people, they'll be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? You're more appealing because you're not fighting against the natural
flow of things.
Right.
Yeah. And I think also too, people get bored when they can predict where you're going next.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah, for sure.
And I got to say that once again, I got to credit that live stream energy, because when you have 60 or 70 variables in a room and anybody can say something that sparks an idea. Shout out to my boy Tone from Bakersfield, who has been like the biggest supporter of my music as an artist, and probably one of the biggest reasons I'm still rapping today. Because there was a time where I just, like you see how you started this off, I wasn't even thinking about rapping. But Tone came into a live stream and he said, "Yo, Kurt, man, have you ever thought about doing a DIY part 2? And I just saw it and I was like, nah, I'm just kind of like making music. And he said, I don't know, bro. I was kind of thinking of a concept where it's 2 of you in the present day, which your dad had, and then having Nas on the cover too. That put so many goosebumps on me. Just reading that.
That's beautiful.
Because that variable existed, and I was in a place where I was pushing against the change that was happening. The audience didn't want more beats from Curtis. We've seen this. We've seen you do all kind of beats. We've seen you even do cinematic type beats. We've never seen this career that you talked about as an artist, and we've never seen. And you got people who, and it's hard for me to sometimes be in their world, but they don't have studio session homies.
Right. No. Right.
They don't even have a studio in their city.
Right.
Right. And they're watching a creative process in which, Oh Gosh walks in the room, Grammy nominated Nabian walks in the room, Hannibal Buress walks in the room. Like, what is this world that you're living in? That's what they think that LA is. You just walk into celebrities, but when you're looking at this beyond the celebrity end of it, you're looking at this enormous talent, and all you have to pay is a YouTube, not even a subscription. It's free. And I get to sit in this session and see the way a session goes, and I get to live vicariously with you. That's something that when I started seeing that, I started recognizing this is why we have to pivot, because now they want to, like, Curtis, you can talk about it all day long. We believe you. Can we see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then this is the first time I said, you know what? Let's throw the camera on, and if I make an album that I'm not proud of, like, then at least we'll have new content.
Right. Which was zero chance of that happening.
Yeah, because I was like, there's no way I was gonna turn that camera on and not try to show out and do what I do. But man, I am grateful that there's only one session that we didn't edit up. Right, I made one song that I was like, that ain't. I don't think that's got it. I don't even want to show that to the executive producer. But outside of that, every single thing, and it's crazy, only 2 of the songs are like the 76 that we created in the live stream over a year. Only 2 of those made the project. I made the rest of them in the last 3 months.
Right.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't even thinking about making an album at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
I said it may be a possibility, but when he said that put me back in a space what you're talking about of you have to always be aware of the flow of where the water is going, and the water being the community, the water being the people, the where society is going. And you see all these behind the scene clips of these produced videos of like these artists in their genius mode. You don't see when they're like, I cannot get this take right.
The actual valuable stuff.
The stuff that makes
that's
you
the
feel,
stuff that's actually valuable.
Right. The stuff that you're like, okay, the fact that you did 40 takes in order to get that done, and I know why that's my favorite part of the project now. I think those are, and then also too, it's the insecurity factor that we all deal with on some level. That's like, I don't like my voice, or I don't like when I do this. And then you see a singer not singing perfect pitch, and you realize that auto-tune is a factor in that. Then you're like, I think I'll give this a try. Right? So I wanted to show all that, and it's still up for people to see, but I'm like, now, that's why I felt like we already won. I was like, I didn't know what I was signing up for. I knew it was a lot of work, but we did that, and I did not slack on any of it, and I don't think we're done with the series. Like, now I have to talk about the marketing afterwards. Now I have to talk about, we're talking about doing music videos for pretty much every song on the project.
That'd be great.
Like, I really want, instead of us, instead of me, I should say, being the old man that's like, you guys need to promote your album more and da-da-da-da. It's like, damn it, you haven't showed them an example of what that looks like.
Right.
And you haven't broken it down. So now, the beautiful thing also, too, last thing I'll say about the whole reward system is that there are so many people who come into each of our ecosystems, right? They've watched, they listened to the podcast, and they've seen the merch, they never bought the merch, or they've seen the event, never went to the event. And they may be around for 5 or 6 years. This happens so often that people have to go through a cycle of being exposed to your brand, through your content, through your people have been watching me on all these platforms for years and have never bought a course. How do I know? Because when I searched their name through the database of Kajabi, there was no product underneath their name. And I'm like, I for sure thought they bought a product. Now this is their first time entering the ecosystem.
Yeah.
If they get this kind of value for $5.99, imagine how excited they will be for a content creation course.
Yeah.
Something that aligns and something that can actually make the money.
That's sweet synergy right there.
So I do this, and people are like, man, you're giving away your products, you're devaluing it. I learned that lesson a long time ago when I started selling beats and leasing beats for $30 and recognizing that, well, these industry folks that you're telling me I should wait on to get placements from, they're not moving as fast as my bills are. And these folks who are licensing my beats and buying them for $30 or $100 here, or buying them exclusively for $500, they're keeping the lights on today.
Yeah.
When I saw that and recognized that there's a lot of folks who are in this industry who are walking around like, they the big dog, and they don't, and you look in their bank account and there's nothing that represents that big dogness, and they walk around like they run stuff, and they wearing the most flashy stuff, and it's the most expensive things that they own. And when I recognized that and I was like, this is really a show, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And if I ever find myself in a place where I am sharing my art, it's got to be as authentic as jumping off of a podcast and putting a beat behind me. And that's what this album is. This album is, yo, Kurt, what have you been up to the last 4 years? What has it been like for you? And even then, there's still so much more I want to talk about. So now at 37, that's why I can look at this album and say, yeah, I got a few more. I definitely got a few more.
That's dope.
Even if it's not stuff that I release, like, in my 40s, 50s, I love the process of, it's like journaling for me. But it's a lot faster.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more enjoyable because, how do you listen to your journal on loop?
Right.
Now I get to go. I drove up here. I listened to the album back to forth. It took an hour to get here. You know what I'm saying? Back and forth, I listened to it. And I'm like, that's crazy that I was able to capture this. The homie used to tell me every song is like a photo in a photo album. Right? Capture the best, capture it the best way you know how. And so that's the way that I've been approaching it. And I feel like no matter what the numbers say, no matter what happens from these things, and the numbers have shown up, I already won.
I think the single greatest thing you do, to me, and I think it'd be hard to argue against this, is that you put on display as an example the blessings that you have received already through your journey. It is the single greatest thing you can do. It is truly the only thing you actually can contribute to the world at large, is simply giving people an option of what could be. And that thing is the greatest thing you've done. And my friend, you do that well.
Thank you.
And you've accomplished that for sure.
Thank you.
Man, thank you so much for doing this.
Man, I had to come. I had to come here. I hit you guys up first. I was like, when it's that time, I was like, this is going to be, I know it's going to always be deeper than the music. So I appreciate you having me on here for sure. I think we covered a lot. Is there anything else? Anything else you want to talk about? Having bonus footage is never a bad thing. Sure.
Is there anything that just in general you thought about, or maybe you thought about, or maybe we missed that you thought we would talk about?
Yeah, I share this, not, and you guys know my character, but I have to preface this for those who don't know who I am, that are listening. Found out a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it's still very fresh, that my son is on the spectrum, that he has autism. And I think a lot of times people forget, as they see us do the things that we do, right? They forget that we are still, the men of our household. In a lot of ways, somebody explained it to me in a way that really broke it down for me, is that in a lot of ways we're the the energetic anchor of a household. Because as we go, the kids go. As we go, the wife feels a certain way. If our energy's low, everybody feels it in the house. If our energy's high, then everybody is affected by it. Getting that diagnosis was is going to produce the best parent that I can become, the best parent my wife can become, the best husband I can become, because I'm recognizing that this is exactly the way things were supposed to work out. It makes so much in my life, not that it's about me. His diagnosis is not about me, but I say it just to give you perspective as a parent that all these things that are happening, the way that I can stay so stoic through all of this is because I recognize that as fast as things can go beautiful, things can go another direction as well. Yeah. But I also know that no matter how ugly they are, there's beauty in all of that. Now, the diagnosis for my son was the most beautiful clarity that we could ever get, because now we're understanding that our gift to him of being patient parents is also a gift to ourselves to be less anxious human beings, because we have to set example for someone who now, we thought we had anxiety. When you think about what a child on the spectrum goes through, and everybody is different, right? Different levels of the spectrum. When you think about them going into an environment that we take things for granted, like you said, the sirens and music playing in a Chipotle and kids playing around. And I don't think about being overwhelmed by these things. I'm not hypersensitive to them, but seeing him and seeing him get like that, I feel an overwhelming sense of strength. Like I have to show him how to self-soothe. I have to be able to ignore who cares what everybody else is looking, and they're looking like, why is he acting like that? He's too big. I can finally not care. Yeah. And he gave me that gift, because there's nothing more important than ensuring that when he is an adult and he's able to leave our household and be fully functional, which is what we're pushing for and what we believe is going to be, regardless, we're going to always be there for him. He's going to leave this house with an abundance of confidence, not just from his parents, but from his extended uncles that let him know, like, no, this is your superpower. Yeah. There's a peer of mine that hit me up, Dorian Group 82. I never would have expected this message to come from him, but he's like, I just hope you understand how much of a superpower your son has right now. He has that thing that probably took you years to turn off. Utilizing your energy, overusing your energy to make other people happy. Using your energy to squash your emotions so that you don't look and appear a certain way to people. He doesn't have that. So now he gets to operate from that space that took you 30 years to get to, right? Because autism is more of a, it's more of a, less of a cognitive behavior and more of a social interaction is what it affects. So this part of his brain is like, I can't do that because what do I look like? That insecure? No, that's not going. He's going to say it like it is, even if it may look as disrespectful, look raw. It's just the way that it's programmed. And so I am just at a place where I'm loving the community that we have now been a part of by sharing that news. And just for the parents out there that are stressed out by it and trying to figure out how can life, still go on for what you're doing. I like to believe that it's going to help you make better decisions. And so this is my long-winded way of saying that if you see something different within me, a level of confidence you've never seen, it's not arrogance driving that. It's understanding that what I have to be for him.
Yeah. I mean,
God don't make no mistakes. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there you go. I was just going to ask you, do you believe you're destined?
Life is happening for us and not to us.
Okay. Then,
if I don't believe in that, I'd go crazy.
Then you good.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Come on now. You already know.
All right. Thank you. And there you have it. Curtis King. He's a good dude, right? I don't think, look, man, this is what we do here. We go deep with these artists. So if you're into those kind of conversations, if you're into conversations about things that aren't normally talked about in interviews, we're the place for you. Come here for that. And I promise you, we're going to keep digging deeper and peeling back the layers of creativity and the people who take on that journey. of creativity and mastery, as Kurt talked about. So please go check out Kurt anywhere. Really, Curtis King with 2 S's. Just Google it. He's out there. He's in these streets. He's on the internets. And then run up his record, man. DIY 2. Tell him Chris Sees the Internet sent you. And like I said, we're just gonna keep it short today, man, because I know that was a long one. Thank you if you went all the way through that. That's dope. DM me at KILLcRey everywhere. And Invisible Ponchos. You know what to do. Watch the video, man. Support your boy. We're doing some cool things. And we'll talk more about that next week. So stay tuned. And that was the internet. Kurt was on it. We saw it. See you guys next week.